to the Q&A for Things Will Be Different. I would also like to extend a very warm welcome to everybody watching online. If you have any questions, you can always leave a question in the chat and we will try to answer your questions as soon as possible. We are joined here today by Michael Felker, the writer and director of the movie. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is really fun. Thanks for coming up, guys.
So while we're waiting for questions in the chat, I'll ask my question first. Thank you very much for the movie. As you saw, the audience had a lot of fun, having a great time. What about you? How was the screening with all the interaction with the audience?
Yeah, it was pretty awesome just to kind of sit in the back and see how this crowd watches the movie, and I was excited to see them, have fun, but also like get almost too quiet and absorbed into the movie. But it was actually kind of fun to see that too, and then people having fun with the more exciting genre elements. I was very, very happy with how the screening went.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, tonight was also the European premiere of the movie as well?
Yeah, it was. First time in Europe.
Were you expecting a specific reaction as opposed to the reaction from the American audiences?
I know this is like a huge genre festival that is like known for having fun with their screenings, so I was really trying to just really find like a good experience with, there we go, that's better. I was just trying to see what that was like, trying to see what things were happening. How about that? That's better. It was interesting in that it was mainly the just sitting back and seeing how they responded to the genre elements and really going like, all right, did I do a good job as a director trying to make sure that they're still having fun, even though this movie is very heady and is designed to leave you with lots of questions and theories to pick apart after. But overall, I was happy because the audience reacted way bigger to the bigger set pieces and the genre elements, whereas most times the audience is, pretty silent. So it was really fun for me to watch from the back.
Oh, great.
Yeah, maybe you can start with the beginning of the film process, because you wrote the script yourself. Can you tell us something about the writing process? How long did it take you?
Oh yeah, it was, so I basically wrote this as a movie for my father, who is a huge sci-fi fan. Basically, anytime we go see a science fiction movie, we go afterwards to get coffee or a drink and just like pick it apart and talk about it for hours afterwards. Because, the best science fiction movies, I feel like, are the ones that aren't the ones that give you all the answers to the universe, but have you reaching for questions. So, like about 2 years ago, we came out of Everything Everywhere All at Once and went to have coffee for hours. We just talked about the world, the rules, and how everything worked. And then I just then started pitching him this idea for this, like, hey, what if a brother and sister robbed a bank and hid in a time travel house as a way to get away from the cops? And then he loved that. We started spitballing ideas, and then kind of after we spitballed these ideas, it was basically written in about 8 weeks, so very, very quick. Yeah, it was so, given that was about 2 years ago, and we finished the movie up until literally 2 months ago. It all went very fast, but the script, I had the world for a while, but the story wasn't there. And then once I had the story with my dad, that's how that's how I was able to write it so quickly.
About the story, we have the brother and sister. I was very surprised about their relationship. How did that evolve in the process?
Yeah, so the brother and sister story actually comes from me and my own sister. She works in another part, so we both are separated in the United States. I'm in California, she's in Alabama. I am in film, and she works in biochemistry. And then she has kids, and I'm a dumb guy making movies all the time. So it's my way of like saying that we don't connect enough, to the point where, so we both have matching tattoos on our arms. You can see here. She has a tattoo at the exact same spot on her arm. And so that inspired the connection that's in the movie between the two characters that also share a tattoo. And anytime we have a bad day, I just text a picture of my tattoo and say, "I love you, sis," and then she's like, texts her tattoo back and says, "I love you too." So the whole story and the emotional crux comes from my want to see more of my sister.
Isn't that just cute?
It was definitely noticeable that they were very grounded in reality, even though their surroundings were very unnatural, I guess, in this case. Now, I think what was very interesting is the way that they reacted very differently to the situation at hand. For example, Sid was very much into, trying to figure out what was going on, all these, trying to come up with all these theories. Meanwhile, Joe was just kind of going a little bit insane at some points.
Yeah.
I really liked the dynamic between the two and just how grounded they felt, even though everything around it was kind of not necessarily chaotic, but very unnatural and very strange. So I think it's very interesting to see how you kept them human in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of how me and my sister work. She works in science, so she's constantly chasing the theories and trying to find the answers, just like Sid does in the movie. Whereas I kind of, give to whatever greater being is beyond us. And so Joe's character goes a little mad, loses his hope and his dreams, and kind of goes into more of a faith-based route throughout the whole movie. And so seeing that dichotomy of, like, even though they're very close and they kind of read each other's minds and finish each other's sentences, when it gets really desperate, they both have totally different ways about dealing with the situation.
Now also the actors' involvement in these characters, did they get a little bit of say in how they performed, or was it mostly just...
I think they had a lot of say. So basically, Riley is in California, Adam is in New York, so they didn't get to meet each other until the day before we started shooting. And so when we casted them, which was like a very extensive casting process, and these were our two top choices, we just got on Zoom calls a lot and just talked for like hours and hours and hours. We didn't even talk about like how to read lines or what parts are doing what. We just talked like as if we're just trying to catch up and know each other. And then after those calls, I encouraged both of them to go do their own calls and form their own like inside jokes, their own comfortability between the two of them, so that way I didn't even know about it, and that way when we came to set and acted, they were just felt really comfortable with each other and can help each other out if they were, one of them was struggling in the scene or not. So it definitely helped that they brought a lot to the table to make that relationship very believable.
A very natural dynamic.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that process again. But you need good actors, and Adam and Riley are the best actors I've ever worked with.
Oh, they were fantastic, actually.
Yeah, because talking about the casting process, we have amazing actors in the movie. Yeah, as you said, Riley Dendy, known from Interceptor. We have Justin Benson, who's also an amazing director. Thompson in NCIS Hawaii and everything. How did the casting process go in the first place? It should be amazing that
So when Rustic came on board after they read the script and felt they're very happy, Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead's production company, and from there they set us up with a casting director who helped us really weed it down. And we really wanted someone who both of them to feel tough and like anytime they were not speaking at all, like able to be very action oriented, but when they were just sitting down together, they were just completely emotionally open. And Adam and Riley just, you can tell during a reading when they're just not even reading the script anymore during like the auditions. They just set it aside and made the space their own. And that was really important for me as a director to see them take control of their character and give their interpretation. And then when we saw them together, especially during the Zoom calls when we're like, hey, are they real good brother and sister? They were already feeling like we didn't have to work out chemistry. They just naturally worked together well. So when we had our first pre-pro day with them, which was the day before we started shooting, it went so well. It was basically like the best rehearsal day I ever had. It was just immediately like they got it, and I have to not worry about that, and I can worry about the other departments. So.
Yeah. Now you mentioned before that the script itself was written pretty fast in just a couple of weeks' time. Now we see throughout the movie that seasons change. So how much time did it take to shoot the entire thing?
Yeah, so we shot 2 weeks in winter, February of 2023, and then we took a break to let the corn grow on that farm, and then we came back to shoot 1 week in August of 2023. So seeing that most of the movie takes place in the winter time where they are dealing with the situation at hand, we were able to edit in between, see what reshoots we needed to do, any tweaks we needed to do on the writing. Because we're a very small crew, and we have a lot of passionate crew members who are able to do so much. But at the same time, we're a small crew, so if there were mistakes that were made or things that were didn't quite work in the edit, we're able to go back and reshoot in the summer. And then by the time we finished in late August, we were pretty close to already having a finished movie. We just filled in the gaps from there. So that's why the editing process went very, very quickly throughout fall and winter to finishing early this year.
Yeah. No, speaking about the editing process, if I'm not mistaken, you initially started out as a PA and then as a film editor. Now, how did you transfer that editing experience into directing your shorts and then into your feature?
Yeah, so I have edited Benson and I think all but one of Benson and Moorhead's movies, and that one I didn't do was I was a PA, so I just gave notes on it anyway. And I just learned a lot from being like the post-mortem of how well a shoot went. So if a shoot went poorly, I could see it in the edit. I could see it in between, like when they call cut and when they call action again, I could just see the extra rolling and seeing how things work and didn't work, and where to put the camera was very important to me as one of the things to help out. So that's why my DP Carissa, her and I actually, when you're an editor, you actually want to pre-plan as much as you can so that way you can have it cut like butter later. So me and my DP Carissa got to the house a week early when it was empty and just shot the entire movie in still form. So every time we had a shot in there, it was like that was planned. I acted in it in the still, just playing either Adam or Riley, and then she would shoot it with her camera. And then that helped us inform even the edit when we were going in. And as an editor, it helps you know when to save time and money on set as a director. So if you are already knowing how a scene's going to cut, you can be like, we don't need that coverage. And they're like, are you sure it's coverage? You might need it. And I'm like, no, I'm editing right now on the set. That's done. This is what we're doing. And it helped not only the movie to hopefully feel confident in how it's made, but it made the crew confident in us and that we knew what we were doing and knew what we wanted. So that made the editing process pretty easy, knowing that that's where my home is, and as a director I can approach it from that angle.
Plus also you're saving on time.
Save so much time for shots we didn't need and save money for days we weren't going to shoot, so it was great.
Maybe there's already an opportunity to ask a question from the audience. Yes, perfect.
Hi,
Hi.
I came just to congratulate myself. I'm sorry, I'm emotional.
No,
it was a very good movie. So congratulations. I think that it's an American production, right?
Yes.
So I kind of feel that we keep Americans to such high standards, right? Obviously because it's your market, rightfully so. As a fellow American, I'm American, but I live in Italy. So congratulations. I think you found some great narrative and script solutions for the passage of time with the change of hair. Really well done.
Oh, thank you for noticing.
And other little details in the script that were really, really well written, in my opinion.
Oh.
But I have a question.
Yes.
Where did the daughter get the key from?
So this movie has, that's a great question. It's one of probably a dozen questions I get that are definitely there. The thing that I like about sci-fi that I try to hit is just giving enough information to get you in the perspective of what the characters are dealing with, but also painting what you could interpret maybe beyond in the fog of the world. Now, I do have the answer in like a giant notebook back in my office that is possibly saved for a sequel/prequel to this movie down the road. I'm kind of using like this festival circuit to see like if people want those answers or they want to fill their own answers in. It's kind of like a weird little experiment for me. But there is an answer for the key. It's an answer to the world. It's an answer to, why there are these interstate doors that allow them to, bridge this like quantum mechanic highway, so to speak. Yeah, so I could give you the answer, but that might take away from something that could be in a sequel/prequel. I always say this as an answer for people who really want to know the answers. Get me drunk enough later and I'll tell you the entire movie. So, there you go. Yeah. Sorry, that's a non-answer. But,
No,
yeah.
Hi, I was wondering about the use of music
Yes.
in the movie, because to me it seemed like you were telling a parallel story with your music. Can you tell us a bit more about your choices and
Yeah, there's like I think there's multiple layers to the music. So we have 3 layers of music basically. We have the score, we have the licensed songs that are based off on our world, and then there's the songs that we made for the movie. And they all give another layer to what's going on. Obviously, the score done by Michael Miller and Jimmy Lavelle. Jimmy's worked with us on all of the Benson Moorhead movies, and Michael came in to add a very rustic strings feel that really helped tie in, you know, just the mood and atmosphere of telling a sci-fi in the middle of like cold farmland. But the song specifically for the world building, I liked to have, the reason why it's regimented like that, where in the summer present, spoiler alert, I'm going to go into this a little bit, the summer section is songs from our world. It's the songs we've heard before. You can pull those up right now on Spotify and they show you like, hey, here's our present. But if you go to this winter, they're all songs that sound familiar, but they're not actually out there. You can't go find them because we wrote them for the movie. And it gives another sense that they're not just going into the past or going to the future. They're going to somewhere else that's slightly different from ours. So, you know, I used like the sense of just pop rock songs which sound like they can be played now and people would still enjoy them, but then I just alter them enough and have it layer into this otherworldly feeling we got in the winter house that gives us a sense that this is not even our, this is a slightly alternate dimension, alternate reality. So I'm glad you picked up on that. There's lots of little more things I could get into, but I would be probably getting too into the weeds at that point. But yeah, those are our layers of music.
So yeah, I'll ask you a more technical question.
Yes.
I think you made a lot of interesting choices when it comes to the shots. For example, you have this scene where she runs in the field and getting sick and vomiting the blood.
Yeah.
You keep a long time in the wide shot, and then you have this inserts, this close, also sometimes off-beat. Can you explain a bit of the choices there?
Yeah, so I feel like all the best narrative choices, specifically as a director, actually come from a necessity when something happens on production. So that originally was supposed to be Adam and Riley. Both Joe and Sid were supposed to go in the field. Fortunately, Adam got COVID for 1 week during our winter shoot. We had to put him in quarantine. So for one of our 2 weeks, it was just Riley. So we had to think about a new way to approach that sequence without Joe. And we kind of brainstormed because we were shooting it the next day. We definitely weren't getting Adam back for 3 more days. And then we thought, you know, let's use the location to its advantage. Let's start using like how wide and open and lonely this field is to set up that they feel like ants in an ant farm. And so when she passes through the threshold and starts breaking through the boundary, which she's not supposed to, we came up with this idea. It's like, just get it wide, let Riley go as far as she can, and then we'll just walkie to her to be like, all right, and you're getting sick. And she has a walkie hidden on her from very far away to do these specific cues. And then when we wanted to get close, she's vomiting, and we do those as pickups later with blood. And the narrative reason was that I wanted people to feel like as she is slowly running away from our time and medium close-ups and medium shots, she's now being pulled apart physically from wide shots to close-ups, and how jarring that feels makes her physically sick to not be in this space. So when we came up with that, which was just like get it on sticks and then we're done with like a huge set piece for the movie, in these 2 setups, it revitalized the whole crew that was like, oh my god, are we gonna get Adam back? It's like, no, we're gonna still make this movie and Adam will come back, and this set piece will be like a standard we set with. So it was really nice that we figured that out, and it really helps get this feeling that you're being torn apart just from this shot design with Riley and her character as well.
Absolutely. I think that was also my favorite shot from the entire movie as well. Just how it goes from her being very vulnerable in this very wide shot to almost claustrophobically close, and just, yeah, it was very jarring, but in the best way.
Yeah, exactly. We wanted you to feel sick and nauseated just a little bit, just like her, and that came from my background on editing. I mean, like, I know I can just punch in and get that, and then just let this wide play as long as we can. So.
Now, people actually, the genre of sci-fi is kind of considered to be one of those genres that is kind of difficult to pull off effectively. Do you agree with this, first of all?
I mean, no. For me, no. But I also grew up with my dad, who's an engineer. He worked with NASA, he worked with Boeing, and he reads a lot of sci-fi fiction books, specifically Hugo winners, as his free time thing to do. So naturally, we just talk about science fiction, and he raised me on movies like The Matrix and Alien and Blade Runner, and these movies that make you kind of think, but also give you this like repulsive, otherworldly action and suspense and entertainment. So it just came from studying a lot of those, seeing what you, not only what worked, but what you liked in them, what I liked in them in those movies, and then going to do that. I think The Matrix is my favorite movie of all time because not only did it give you a sense of world and understanding and possibilities of what's going on there in the lore, but it also is just a fine piece of evolutionary filmmaking. You know, like having just this world and what you think movies can do just be expanded upon and shrunk and built up. And so I try to strive for something like that, which is something, I think my mantra in making movies is I want to just make something I've never seen before, which is a lot of great sci-fi comes from there. And Matrix is always a linchpin of that was something I never saw before, and it blew my mind.
Absolutely. Now, what do you think are the biggest roadblocks and difficulties when making specifically a sci-fi movie, actually?
It's trying to figure out that, you know, a lot of general sci-fi means you have to have visual effects, you have to show the world. That's like a big thing. It's like, you know, there's an old saying of like horror, the audience will forgive you for the mystery, but sci-fi, they kind of get frustrated if they don't know everything about it. But the problem is in filmmaking, like, you know, in telling a compelling story, stopping to explain this world and show off every corner of it, and showing like the planets and the ships and everything and the visual effects of it, just brings it all down and just loses sight of the story. So I feel like the best way to do indie sci-fi is you know the rules, and then pick the windows in which people can watch the world through it. And it'll actually, you know, drive you to ask questions and go like start to fill in your own answers of what this could possibly be. You know, the best fan fiction I ever written when I was a kid was based off knowing more about the worlds that I couldn't see beyond the movie. So I feel like that's the key, is like you don't have to show everything, you just have to give enough where people know that there's a bigger world out there, even though they can't go outside and see it in the sky, you know what I mean?
So they actively engage with the world, even though you didn't give them all the answers, but they still, you know, actively think about, oh, what could it be? Or
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, you know, and again, that's my take on sci-fi, is I love coming away with questions and filling them in, because the minute I get too many questions or with answers, I see that the fog dissipates and all of the world is a sham. I can see all the walls, I can see the flats. I then lose interest and I walk away feeling that the world got smaller for me. So I always want to try to keep the feeling of something just out of reach, just beyond the fog. And I feel like, you know, that kind of gets into more of like cosmic horror, really, which I feel like is that beautiful blend between sci-fi and true terror and fear. And I feel like that's, you know, cosmic horror is probably a better way to explore sci-fi with limitations.
I think that we have a question in the public still.
Hey.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much, Michael, for the proposition. It was super nice, nice movie. Really original take on time travel stuff. So thank you so much for that thing. I have a question that goes along with the answer that you just had just there about the story and how much we reveal to the audience. And so a thing that sometimes we see in movies that you'll see a movie where nothing is shown, everything is fuzzy, and at the end we show a big reveal, and then the movie crumble. It's not the case with yours, so I just want to reassure you.
I was like, oh, you're set me up for something.
No, sorry, it's not a trap. So I just wonder how, so knowing that, and probably you have some name of movie in mind also, I just wonder how do you manage there to do, okay, I don't want to give everything to the audience, but I want to not make all the weight of the movie hinge on that particular reveal or some part of the reveal or the information I'm giving. So I'm just wondering, how do you manage that? Since you write the script, do you do like little testing with friends, people that, you know, how do you manage how much information I give, how much information I retain, and hopefully I won't make the film hinge on one particular scene that could break everything?
Yeah, it's something I learned when working with, that's a great question. It's one of the questions we actually ask ourselves when we're working with Benson and Moorhead on all their movies, because they also live in the sci-fi realm, and you know, they try not to answer every question either. They like to leave the audience enough room for their interpretation. My old saying is that, you know, the old saying is that 2 + 2. If you give the audience 2 + 2 and they add up 4, they'll love you forever. I've been trying I give 2 + 2 as a question, but the audience comes up with 5, and then they go like, wait, what the fuck does that mean? So it makes people like figure out why the puzzle's written that way. But for editing, it's actually a big editing process thing where we call it good confusion or bad confusion. You know, we want people to live in the world of good confusion where it's like design questions of like why, like when somebody watches the cut, for example, and they give me like, hey, why is this happening here, blah, blah, blah. And I go like, that's a good question to ask. And, you know, I want you to maybe think about that a little bit more. Or, you know, maybe give me your interpretation and begin the discussions that I was inspired by with my dad when talking about movies with coffee afterwards. But then there's bad confusion, which is like, I don't know why this character's doing this or why a plot thing happens. And you go, okay, let's wrestle with that. Let's actually go back in the edit and figure that out. Because, you know, you want people to understand. I think as long as the characters and the journey with the characters really makes sense and you're emotionally connected, you're going to have an audience at least with a life raft to go through the storm of questions. So I think it is a bit of a like a push and pull with lots of rounds of screenings. We only had a couple, unfortunately, but we did like. I sent it to everyone I knew and got a feedback. And if you get a lot of people in one Venn diagram being like, I don't know what that is, I go, okay, then let's go back at the edit and figure it out. But if you have like 1 or 2 people and they're poking the edges, that's okay. And that's a good thing, at least in my opinion.
As we're going to back to our audience to let them ask their questions, don't forget all our online viewers that you can also put your questions in the chat. So, are there any other questions? Est-ce qu'il y a encore une question dans la salle? Zijn er nog vragen in het publiek?
Hi. Where do you get the idea to use the recorder?
That comes from just me knowing so much about. That's a great question. So the vice grip and how they work. The only reason why they work so well is they got to keep a distance. They want to be able to talk to somebody, but the minute they get too close or try to get too close, people know who they are. It falls apart. You can't trap people in time. So the tape recorder came out of, you know, how do I get people to communicate to each other through time and, you know, when all you have is just things in a farm and in a shed. So there's a lot of rules about like, all right, this tape recorder is a safe way to send a message to somebody. It's locked to a chain, so you can't take the tape recorder and run away with it. You put it in a safe, and the safe is bolted down, so the safe can't even be lifted or anything, so it keeps the communication locked as time passes, and you can talk to people through time past or future. So that came from me just being like, okay, seeing how that all lays out. The tape recorder was just a really cool way of just going like, oh man, I've never seen something like that before, and then using that to talk to something beyond our world. So yeah, and that was tricky because we didn't have a tape recorder. We didn't have a safe. Most of the stuff on the farm we had from, you know, abandoned family farm I had, but we didn't have the safe for the tape recorder. So our production design had to make something really cool about that and make it functional. And it had its hiccups because the Adam and Riley were actually recording their responses, so that way you can make sure that when they press play, it's play. When they press record, that meant it wasn't like flimsy in their performance. But sometimes they would go back, rewind, and then play the tape, and it was just a performance from another take speaking back out to them on the scene. It was very confusing. So anyway, that was a tangent. But yeah, it was just a way to keep the anonymity and the distance for the vice grip in order to talk to the people they're trapping.
Another question? Encore une question?
No, for now, then we will continue. One of the things I was wondering during the movie was the significance of the title of the movie, Things Will Be Different. Now, at the end, at least this is my interpretation, of course, I felt that it was more about, well, in this case, Joe thinking he can break the cycle and things will be different, but eventually realizing that he can't, and then, Sid ends the cycle, or tries to end it by killing her brother, which we don't really know what happens. But you just said something interesting, in that you always try when you do a new project to make something you haven't seen before. Could this also kind of be an interpretation? Things will be different. than last time. I will make something new. I will make something that nobody's ever seen before.
That's actually a really good, I guess, meta question. Yeah, because like you nailed it on the head in that it's an ironic title and that things will be different, but our cycles of hope are broken by old habits dying hard, and so no, things will eventually be the same. But yeah, it was also, I wrote the title, it kind of stuck with me because it was my way of proving myself I could direct, you know, a feature. So I'd done shorts and I edited a lot of features, but I hadn't found the right story. I wrote scripts for 15 years, not figuring out the right one to start with, and then I even had another farmhouse time travel movie that I wrote and it didn't quite work. It was a slower movie about an older woman who was just, you know, dealing with being alone during the pandemic and having ghosts of the past talk to her. It fell apart because it just wasn't engaging enough, and then finally I was watching Blood Simple, the Coen Brothers movie Blood Simple, and I just saw like how propulsive and exciting that story is just on a fundamental level, and then I just used that as like the engine in me, and I was like, you know what, things are gonna be different, and I just literally started, and I was like, I just want to make the most fun time travel movie I can with what I have, and then leave people with a little bit of mind melting and questions, but also a little bit of heart if they wanted to just engage with the characters and go from there. So yes, there is.
And indeed, we have a first YouTube question here. Silke Bessemans asks, can you explain how the scenes of the brother and the daughter together fit into the story?
How the scenes of the brother and daughter fit into the story. I guess for me, it's, you know, I have these old habits of, you know, because I had this time travel story, but I didn't have like an emotional hook to it. And I had this world, but I didn't know how to like properly give it emotional resonance. And when I was literally going through this, you know, not talking to my sister long enough and seeing what I could do about it, I always promised her, I was like, I'm going to call her back. I'm going to promise things will be different. I'm going to talk to her more. And then obviously life gets in the way. You just don't get to do enough. And then boom, it's 2 months later and you haven't called her. And then you're like, crap, I thought things would be different. They didn't. So once I figured that out, it fit into this story of cycles being a thing that you can't break unless you absolutely have the determination of the human spirit to break them. And we don't even know if, and the movie doesn't quite answer that question either if that's the case, but it does show that Joe is you know, the line, he's like, you know, the hope lines that they exchange to each other in the beginning of the movie and at the end of the movie. Hope is like the ultimate cycle fulfiller. You always want to think you can actually do the action to change things, but human nature is that you don't. You're always going to do the same thing over and over again. It's incredibly hard to break that cycle. And so Joe's the ultimate fulfillment of that. Like, I can get my sister back to do this thing. I brought her on this trip, and I'm going to make things right with her in debt. I messed up with her before, and I'm going to do it again at the end of the movie by just fixing a couple mistakes. And that's his ultimate doom, and it's ultimately too late to turn back.
It seems like hope is kind of the catalyst, but eventually you still have to put in all the work to make it far enough to where you can break the cycle.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't actually end up working.
Yeah, that's one of the things that if they, you know, if we end up doing the next movie in this story, that's where we actually ask that question, can you actually do it? Which there is a treatment to, and like, you know, I'm like, ooh, do I want to give, which answer do I want to come up with? And I'm still wrestling. That's the reason why we haven't finished a script and gone on to make it immediately, which is like, oh, I'm still knowing what that is myself, because it worked for Adam and his character. He's like, hope is like the biggest catalyst for him, and it's why he, like, when he loses hope during certain parts of the movie, he just spirals and goes to like literally believing in something he can't control, with, you know, worshiping the factors beyond and lighting up shrines and whatnot. So hope is the ultimate like doom, cynical enemy in this whole movie.
Maybe we can talk a bit more about the time travel, because there are especially two things that are very interesting. You have the recorder and also the idea of the vice that needs to be balanced. It's very original, I think, as ideas. Can you tell us a bit more about those two things?
Yeah, I mean, so time travel, we watched one of the movies I would talk about with my dad all the time, which was time travel movies. And there's so many different interpretations to time travel movies that are expressed cinematically. And it's so interesting because it's the allure of taking a linear format and breaking it apart in different ways. But it just melts the brain when you try to do it too much. And I remember I wrote a script like 10 years ago that I just could not crack time travel-wise. I was just like, I want to tell people this and this and this, and it's stopping the story, and it's making people ask more questions. I can't stop it. How do I do it? And my dad gave me the answer of, if you figured out time travel in a script, you would have just invented time travel and you wouldn't be writing scripts. You would just go somewhere else and make time travel happen and become a billionaire. So he just said all time travel should just factor into the story that you're telling. So ultimately, once the brother and sister came up and the cycles of abuse and hope, that really reshaped the world that I was figuring out into making this time travel rules apply to that, and just how, like, you know, all the worst circumstances keep this together and locked in this vice of time, and then if we try to break out of it, you just end up in that same spot over and over again. So that gave me a lot of confidence to apply these time travel rules in there, and you know, hopefully you can find a lot of the answers to some of the lore if you want to dig deeper into the emotion and the characters and seeing what they're seeing or hearing what they're hearing and their connection together. And that is kind of a weird magical way of explaining time travel in movies. I don't know. It was an attempt to try something like that, and I feel like a lot of people will read into it. Some people might go, nope, too much, too confusing, don't want it. But I don't know. I like Primer, so Primer I watch all the time, and Primer is the ultimate, like, throw you in the deep end and figure out the rules. So yeah, I think it all comes from character and story first.
And in general, make a movie with time traveling, it adds a bit more of complexity to every step in the process. I'm still surprised that you guys wrote 8 weeks. Can you tell us about the biggest challenges and how you dealt with those?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny because I say 8 weeks to write the script, but I had the world and the characters, and as long as I had basically my process is if I have the world and I have the arc, I have 8 sequences that I try to hit, and then see how and then I let the characters try to fight their way through it. It makes it feel more organic, it makes me feel like there's more surprise, and if I try not to write with a theme, it makes me see what the theme is after I finish writing it, and usually you find it's less preachy, it's less hopeful, it's very cynical and surprising. So I like that writing process, doing that. But when we were shooting, you know, we had Adam go down with COVID. We also had Winter Storm kill power to our whole town for 3-4 days. And then the Screen Actors Guild strike in America almost killed our summer shoot. So we had to get a SAG waiver. So there's a lot of things that actually kind of like knocked some of our story a little bit here, a little bit there, but then we just had the confidence in what the script was about and the world and our actors, and we were able to find smart pivots while keeping the faith of things going. We would maybe occasionally change a beat here or there just to kind of deal with an indie production and deal with you know, not a lot of money. So yeah, it seems like I finished it in 8 weeks and it was done, but a lot came from before it, a lot came with working with the actors, and a lot more rewrites came from production and the edit. So it was a constant thing. Like you never finish a script. You're always rewriting it until you show it at PIF, and then it's done. At least I think so.
Now, with the experience you've gained from making this movie, if you had the chance to go back and redo it, would you have done anything differently?
I mean, there's like small moments where, you know, in the moment, like, it's more like blocking and geography things. I watch that and I go like, I could have probably shot this differently, or I probably moved the actors over here. Or, you know, I don't know, it's funny because I tried a couple of things where I was like, what if I just answered everything in a cut? And as soon as I did that, I got physically nauseous and took all that information out because I was like, this is boring and I hate it. So not too much, it's just little production things, but I'm very happy with how the movie turned out. It's pretty close to how you're writing it. We wrote it, I mean, working with Benson and Moorhead, they shoot very low budget stuff, so I knew what to write when working with them because they were able to make it work for nothing. The indie film phrase I like to use is like, if in screenwriting you write what you know, but in indie screenwriting you write what you have, so you just try what's your best and make something cool from that. So not too much different, no, I don't think so.
Last chance, dernière chance. Est-ce qu'il y a encore une question dans la salle? Zijn er nog vragen in het publiek? Ja, hier de dame vooraan.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you for the film, it was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
My question, I really love the style because it was like so many different style. You feel like have some big shots. Like, what was your inspiration from this? Like, what films, or you just decided, okay,
I don't know. It's I think I just watch a lot of movies. I think it's the ultimate film school, is just watching everything and then seeing what works for you. Like, what kind of shots speak to you, what kind of shots don't speak to you. And you know, for this, I was like, you know what? I kind of hate handheld cameras. I try to keep it, unless handheld is narratively explicit, even then I don't try to have someone run and chase. I like locked off cameras. It makes me think about a shot. It makes me think about, it makes the decision feel important as a filmmaker that will resonate with an audience. So that's like one of the methods I did, was just like, I was like, you know what? As an editor, I like clean, static shots. It's easier to cut faster when you're not having to adjust your eye all the time. But you know, it just makes every choice feel deliberate, and that's what I liked from watching a lot of movies. There's occasionally handheld here, but it's only narratively to like when characters are unstable or a situation gets out of hand. But at the end of the day, no, it's I picked the choices because I watched a lot of movies from all genres, see what works and doesn't work, and then you start to form your voice as a filmmaker when you kind of take your things that really speak to you in a gut form and then mix it all into a stew. And when you have like your location, your actors, you start to be like, I think I know it here. I think it has to be here, and I don't know why. My gut says so, and it's because I watched a lot of movies.
Okay, I think we're about to end the Q&A. About the movie itself, it's already nominated for the, if I'm not mistaken, the Kickstarter New Gen award. So let's have a big hand for that in the first place. And then the question of, is that something you expected, and will you catch other competitions and festivals?
Oh yeah, I don't know. It's been very fast because we didn't finish the movie until February, like 2 months ago. So it's been very fast doing South by and then doing this festival here for a European premiere and international as well. So I don't know. Like we're still in talks with buyers right now. Like we're still figuring out how to get it into the world. So my expectation is I hope we just keep getting an engaged audience like you guys, and hopefully more people watch it and pick it apart, and then the rest is icing on the cake for me. I don't know. I have no expectation going forward other than sharing it with an audience.
Okay, thank you very much for this amazing movie and this Q&A. Thanks for
Thank you guys for coming out.
And for our audience online, don't forget to stay tuned with us and hit the notification bell that you can get our updates, because there's much more to come. There's still a possibility here to get a signature from the director on stage. Il y a la possibilité de recevoir une signature ici au podium. Jullie kunnen trouwens ook nog een handtekening krijgen van de regisseur hier op het podium.
Thank you so much for your time.
Cool, thanks guys. These are great questions. It's fun. You guys do like a long Q&A. You guys don't do like 15 minutes.
Well, Biff goes first.
Okay, Biff goes first.
We're always checking.
Nice.
Slightly.
That's so cool.
This is our very own economic.
Oh, yeah. Love that. Very cool.
So, check. Well, you can do whatever you want.
Okay.
Well,
to a certain extent.
yes, of